Number 1. Paul Bernardo and Carla Homolka. They looked like the perfect couple blonde, smiling, camera-ready. But behind the photographs, they were planning crimes that would horrify an entire country. On the surface, he was charming and polite, a man who worked in accounting and seemed destined for a stable life. Carla Homolka, born in 1970, came from a quiet, respectable family. Friends remembered her as gentle, even shy. When they met in 1987, it was instant chemistry. To outsiders, they were the picture of young love. No one saw the darkness forming between them. By the early 1990 seconds, the couple's relationship had changed from romantic to disturbing. Bernardo was already being investigated as the Scarborough attacker, but had not yet been arrested. Homolka not only knew about his violent behavior, she chose to stay with him. Their relationship grew increasingly sinister, and soon their crimes escalated. In December 1990, the line between thought and action was crossed. Homolka's younger sister, Tammy, died after a suspicious incident at the family home. Paramedics were told it was an accident. The truth would only come out later. This was their first known victim. Over the next 2 years, the couple targeted teenage girls, luring them with promises of rides, parties, and safety. Their home became the setting for unspeakable acts. Victims disappeared without a trace, and police were left with no solid leads. Bernardo and Homolka acted like nothing had happened, attending family dinners, planning a wedding, smiling in photographs. But their confidence wouldn't last. In 1992, the remains of 2 missing girls, Leslie Mahaffey and Kristen French, were discovered. Both had vanished after short encounters near their homes. Small details began to connect. Similar timelines, strange cars seen in neighborhoods, and eyewitness descriptions that vaguely matched Paul. Bernardo was finally arrested in February 1993 after DNA evidence linked him to earlier assaults. When investigators searched the couple's house, they found hidden video recordings, clear proof of the crimes. What shocked the nation even further was Carla's involvement. She wasn't just a witness. She was present. She helped. Facing the possibility of a life sentence, Carla Homolka made a decision that would make her one of the most controversial figures in Canadian legal history. She agreed to testify against Paul in exchange for a reduced sentence, 12 years in prison. It was called the Deal with the Devil by the media. Paul Bernardo went to trial in 1995. The evidence was overwhelming. Prosecutors played parts of the tapes in court enough to confirm his role without releasing disturbing content to the public. Paul was convicted of killing Leslie Mahaffey and Kristen French and declared a dangerous offender, meaning he would spend the rest of his life in prison with no realistic chance of parole. Carla served her 12-year sentence in Canadian prisons. She was released in 2005 at age 35, legally free but permanently judged by the public. She changed her name, moved several times, and attempted to live quietly. Many believe she escaped true justice. Paul remains incarcerated to this day at a maximum security facility. He has applied for parole multiple times but has been denied each time. He is expected to remain behind bars for life. This case became a turning point in Canadian law and media ethics. It sparked debates over plea deals, privacy, and whether evil can exist behind a friendly smile. Newspapers stopped publishing graphic details, but the damage to public trust had already been done. People began to question how well they knew the people around them, even the ones who seemed harmless. Their story didn't just end in a courtroom. It became a symbol of how love, in its most distorted form, can become a shield for cruelty. A reminder that evil can hide in ordinary blows, homes, wear wedding rings, and smile for family photos. Number 2. Fred and Rosemary West. It looked like an ordinary family home on a quiet street in Gloucester, England. But behind the brick walls of 25 Cromwell Street, Fred and Rosemary West were hiding one of the darkest secrets in British history. Fred West was born in 1941 into a troubled rural family marked by violence and instability. He left school early, worked as a construction laborer, and developed a reputation for being unpredictable. Rosemary, born in 1953, grew up in a home filled with financial hardship and instability. She met Fred when she was just a teenager. Despite the age difference and warnings from relatives, she moved in with him. To outsiders, they seemed like a struggling but ordinary couple, raising a growing family. But their relationship operated on control and manipulation. By the early 1970s, neighbors started noticing odd behavior. Teenage lodgers went missing. Loud noises came from the basement, and Fred constantly dug in the garden for what he claimed were renovations. No one imagined the truth. The couple began targeting vulnerable young women, many of them runaways or girls looking for work. They invited them into their home with promises of safety or a room to rent. Once inside, these girls were never seen again. Their own children later described life inside the house as unpredictable and filled with fear. Yet to the public, Fred and Rose acted like any other couple hosting barbecues, chatting with neighbors, sending their children to school. The truth began to surface in 1992 when one of their daughters finally told authorities that she had been harmed for years. Police opened an investigation. At first, they assumed it was a domestic case. But when multiple children gave consistent stories and mentioned people who had gone missing, detectives requested a search warrant for 25 Cromwell Street. On the 24th of February 1994, police began digging in the garden. Within hours, they discovered human remains. They kept digging. More bodies were found in the garden, under the patio, and even in the basement. In total, at least 12 victims were recovered, including Fred's own daughter, Heather, who had vanished years earlier without explanation. Fred West was arrested and charged. Rosemary claimed she knew nothing, but investigators uncovered evidence that she was not only aware, but actively involved in several killings. As pressure mounted, Fred confessed to multiple crimes, but insisted he acted alone. No one believed him. On New Year's Day 1995, before his trial could begin, Fred was found dead in his prison cell. He had taken his own life. Rosemary West stood trial in October 1995. The prosecution presented forensic evidence, witness testimonies, and statements from surviving children. The jury found her guilty of 10 counts of killing. She received a whole life tariff, meaning she will never be released. 25 Cromwell Street was demolished in 1996. The address was erased to prevent it from becoming a dark tourist site. But the legacy of Fred and Rose West remains. Their case forced major changes in UK child protection laws and missing persons procedures. It also raised a haunting question: how did so many people disappear without being noticed sooner? Today, Rosemary remains in a high-security prison. She rarely speaks and has never fully admitted her role. Fred's story ended in silence, long before justice could be formally delivered in court. Their story is not just about two individuals, it's about the illusion of normality, the failure of institutions, and the lies a family can hide behind closed doors. Number 3. Ian Brady and Myra Hindley. It began with a photograph. Myra Hindley's cold stare, blonde hair, perfectly styled, and a vacant expression. It became one of the most hated faces in Britain. But the real horror started years earlier, when she met a man who would draw her into one of the darkest chapters in modern criminal history. Ian Brady was born in 1938 inches, Glasgow, Scotland. His childhood was marked by poverty and instability. He was intelligent but distant, drawn to violent philosophy and extremist writings. By his early 20s, he had moved to Manchester and worked as a clerk. Colleagues found him strange but quiet. Myra Hindley was born in 1942. She grew up in a working-class family in Manchester. Described as loyal and reserved, she rarely caused trouble. But when she met Brady at her workplace in 1961, everything changed. She became fascinated with his intelligence, his confidence, and his darkness. She began altering herself to please him, bleaching her hair, wearing leather jackets, and absorbing every book he recommended. Together, they fed off each other's obsessions. Their relationship became a world of fantasy and control, slowly turning into something far more dangerous. Brady spoke of committing the perfect crime. Hindley didn't stop him. She helped him plan it. Their first known victim was 16-year-old Pauline Reed in July 1963. Hindley offered her a ride on her motorcycle while Brady followed behind. Pauline never returned home. Her disappearance shocked the community, but no one suspected the quiet couple living nearby. In November 1963, they struck again. 2-year-old John Kilbride vanished after going to a market. Then, in June 1964, 2-year-old Keith Bennett disappeared. Each time, police searched, posters went up, and families begged for answers. But there were no clues, no evidence, no suspects. Their crimes continued. In December 1964, they targeted 10-year-old Leslie Ann Downey. This time, investigators would later find audio recordings of her final moments. It was one of the most disturbing pieces of evidence ever presented in a British courtroom. Their final victim was 7-year-old Edward Evans in October 1965. But this time, they made a mistake. Myra's brother-in-law, David Smith, walked into the house shortly after the crime took place. Horrified by what he saw, Smith pretended to help, then ran home and contacted the police. Officers arrived at the Westons' home on October 7th, 1965, and found evidence linking Brady and Hindley to Edward Evans. Brady was arrested immediately. Hindley claimed innocence. But as police searched their home, they uncovered a suitcase in a train station locker containing photographs, plans, and most disturbingly, images of Myra and a young child at Saddleworth Moor. This was the turning point. Investigators returned to the moor, armed with shovels, maps, and hope. On October 16th, 1965, they found the body of Leslie Ann Downey. In 1966, John Kilbride's remains were also recovered. In court, Brady stared blankly. Hindley tried to appear calm and remorseful, but the jury was unmoved. Ian Brady was convicted in May 1966 of killing 3 children and sentenced to life imprisonment. Myra Hindley was convicted of 2 and received the same sentence. Even after the trial, the devastation wasn't over. 2 children, Keith Bennett and Pauline Reed, were still missing. Pauline was found in 1987 on the moors. Keith Bennett's body has never been found, despite decades of searching. His mother died without ever laying him to rest. Brady spent most of his life in high-security hospitals, claiming he was sane and begging to die in prison rather than remain under psychiatric care. He died in 2017. Hindley remained incarcerated for the rest of her life. She died in 2002, never released, though she repeatedly applied for parole. Their crimes became known as the Moors murders. They changed how Britain viewed trust, childhood safety, and media responsibility. The photographs of Myra Hindley became a symbol of betrayal, proof that evil doesn't always look like a monster. Their legacy remains unspeakable grief for the families left behind and a cold reminder of how love, in its darkest form, can turn into horror. Number 4. Gypsy Rose. Blanchard and Nicholas Godejohn. It was the kind of story that seemed too strange to be real. A sick, wheelchair-bound girl, a devoted mother always by her side, and then a single message posted online, "That bee is dead." It was the beginning of a truth far darker than anyone imagined. Gypsy Rose Blanchard was born in 1991 inches, Louisiana. From infancy, her mother, Claudine Dee Blanchard, claimed Gypsy suffered from leukemia, muscular disorders, seizures, and countless other illnesses. She used wheelchairs, feeding tubes, and medication daily. Neighbors saw a fragile girl and a selfless mother. Charities built them a free home, celebrities offered support, and the community adored them. But almost none of it was true. Dee was secretly causing or fabricating Gypsy's illnesses, a form of abuse known as Munchausen syndrome by proxy. Gypsy could walk. She didn't need a wheelchair. She wasn't terminally ill. She was a victim, trapped in a life built on lies. Every time Gypsy questioned her mother, she was threatened, isolated, or physically restrained. Doctors were manipulated. Medical records altered. Anyone who doubted Dee was pushed away. In 2012, Gypsy secretly joined an online Christian dating site. There, she met Nicholas Godejohn, a socially isolated man from Wisconsin with his own struggles. Their relationship grew quickly. They shared fantasies of running away together, getting married, and escaping her mother. But Gypsy knew that freedom couldn't exist with her mother alive. For years, she planned. In June 2015, she decided the plan would no longer stay in messages, it would become real. On June 14, Nicholas traveled to Missouri to meet Gypsy in person for the first time. Late that night, Gypsy handed him a knife and hid in the bathroom. Dee Dee was in bed sleeping. Nicholas carried out the act while Gypsy covered her ears. When it was over, they took cash, packed belongings, and fled by bus to Wisconsin. The next day, friends, I noticed something strange. Gypsy's shared Facebook account posted disturbing updates, one of them reading, "That bee is dead." Worried neighbors called the police. Officers arrived at the Blanchard home, found Dee Dee's body, and believed Gypsy had been kidnapped or harmed. Instead, they found her safe walking at Nicholas's house in Wisconsin. The world was stunned. The sick little girl could walk and had never been terminally ill. Years of deception unraveled. Medical records revealed unnecessary surgeries, medication overdoses, and forged documents. Neighbors, charities, even doctors felt betrayed. In July 2016, Gypsy Rose pled guilty to second-degree killing and was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Many believe she was both victim and participant, a girl pushed to the edge by years of control. Nicholas Godejohn went to trial in 2018, was convicted of first-degree killing, and received a life sentence without parole. Today, Gypsy remains in prison, but is eligible for release in 2024. In interviews, she has said she feels freer behind bars than she ever did at home. The house in Missouri was demolished, but the story became the subject of documentaries, podcasts, and the Hulu series The Act. This case forced the world to look at a different type of crime, one where the victim became the planner, where love and manipulation twisted into desperation, and where the final question wasn't just how it happened, but whether Gypsy had any other way out. Number 5. Jennifer Pan and Daniel Wong. It began as a quiet suburban love story, then turned into one of the most shocking betrayals a family could imagine. Jennifer Pan grew up in Markham, Ontario, the daughter of Vietnamese immigrants who believed deeply in discipline, education, and sacrifice. Her father, Han, worked long hours at an auto parts company. Her mother, Bitch, worked in manufacturing. They expected excellence, top grades, no distractions, no dating. On report cards, AB was unacceptable. They dreamed she would become a pharmacist or doctor, but Jennifer was failing. Instead of admitting it, she began faking report cards, forging university acceptance letters, and lying about attending college, all while secretly dating Daniel Wong, a classmate her parents forbid her to see. They broke up, got back together, and lived in a world hidden from her family. By 2010, Jennifer's lies were collapsing. Her father discovered she had never graduated high school, never attended university, and had been living a double life. Her phone was confiscated. She was barred from seeing Daniel. She was watched constantly. Jennifer grew desperate. She and Daniel began talking not about escape, but about removing the obstacle, her parents. On the 8th of November 2010, Jennifer left her bedroom door unlocked and texted Daniel the final instructions. 3 men, Lenford Crawford, David Malvaganam, and Eric Carty, entered the Pan family home just after 9:30 p.m. Jennifer appeared to be tied to the banister, playing the victim. Her parents were forced into the living room. Gunshots followed. Bitch Pan was killed instantly. Han was shot but survived, falling unconscious at the foot of the stairs. Jennifer called 911, pretending to be terrified, claiming strangers had broken in. But her story started falling apart within days. Police noticed Jennifer's voice on the 911 call was too calm. There were no marks on her wrists from being tied up. Phone records showed messages between her and Daniel right before the crime. And then her father woke up. From his hospital bed, Han told detectives something Jennifer never imagined. He saw her walking freely, not tied up. He heard her speaking softly to one of the intruders, like she knew him. Jennifer was arrested on the 22nd of November 2010. Daniel Wong and the gunman followed soon after. In court, Jennifer claimed she had only hired men to help her end her own life, not her parents. But the messages told a different story: payment plans, timing, and chilling coordination. In 2014, after a 10-month trial, Jennifer Pan, Daniel Wong, and two of the gunmen were convicted of first-degree killing and attempted killing. All were sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole for 25 years. Han Pan survived, but now lives with permanent injuries and trauma. He cut all contact with Jennifer. In a victim impact statement, he said, "I lost my wife, my daughter, and my son. Though he is alive, he has lost his mother and sister in the same night." Jennifer Pan remains in prison today, with possible parole in 2035. Daniel Wong is also serving life. This case became infamous not for randomness, but for its cold calculation. A daughter who had everything except freedom and chose deception, then destruction. A reminder that sometimes the most dangerous betrayals come from within a family's own walls. Number 6. Amanda Knox and Raffaele Solecito. It started in a quiet university town in .com, Italy, then spiraled into one of the most debated trials of the 21st century. In 2007, Amanda Knox was a 20-year-old student from Seattle studying abroad in Perugia, Italy. Bright, adventurous, and a little naive, she shared a small villa with three other students. Just a week after arriving, she met Raffaele Solecito, a shy 23-year-old Italian software engineering student. They quickly became inseparable. But everything changed on November 2nd, 2007. That morning, Amanda came home to find the front door open, blood in the bathroom sink, and her roommate Meredith Kircher's bedroom locked. Police arrived and forced the door open. Inside, they found Meredith dead on the floor. The scene was deeply disturbing, and investigators immediately suspected murder. What followed became a storm of media chaos, language barriers, and controversial police work. Amanda and Raffaele were questioned for hours without lawyers, translators, or rest. Amanda later said she was pressured, yelled at, even struck by investigators. Exhausted and confused, she gave a statement implicating herself and the homeowner's friend, though she later retracted it, saying it was forced. Meanwhile, forensic teams made a key discovery. Fingerprints and DNA in the room belonged to Rudy Guedi, a local man with a criminal record. He fled to Germany, but was arrested soon after. He admitted being there, but blamed Amanda and Raffaele. Despite this, prosecutors claimed Meredith's death was the result of a group attack. They portrayed Amanda as unstable and manipulative, calling her Foxy Knoxy. The media devoured the story, turning a legal case into worldwide entertainment. In 2009, after a year-long trial, Amanda Knox and Raffaele Solecito were convicted. Amanda received 26 years in prison, Raffaele 25. Rudy Guedi, tried separately, was sentenced to 16. But the case didn't end there. Defense teams appealed, citing major flaws in the investigation: contaminated DNA, mishandled evidence, and no physical proof tying Amanda or Raffaele to the room. In 2011, the convictions were overturned. After 4 years behind bars, Amanda and Raffaele walked free. Yet, in 2013, Italy's highest court ordered a retrial. In 2014, they were convicted again. The back-and-forth verdicts left the world divided. Were they guilty or victims of a broken system? Finally, in March 2015, Italy's Supreme Court gave its final decision. Amanda Knox and Raffaele Solecito were fully acquitted. Judges cited stunning errors in the investigation. Amanda returned to the United States. Raffaele resumed his life in Italy. Today, Rudy Guedi, the only person definitively proven to be at the crime scene, served 13 years and was released in 2021. The case remains controversial. For some, Amanda and Raffaele were wrongfully accused victims of media frenzy and flawed justice. For others, too many questions remain unanswered. But one truth is undeniable. This was a story where youth, tragedy, and global attention collided, turning a single crime into a courtroom drama watched by the entire world. Number 7. Michelle Carter and Conrad Roy. It wasn't a violent act or a physical weapon, just words sent through a phone, but those words would lead to one of the most controversial trials in modern American history. Conrad Roy was 18, from Massachusetts. Quiet, intelligent, and deeply troubled, he struggled with anxiety and depression. In the summer of 2014, he met Michelle Carter, a 17-year-old from a nearby town. They rarely met in person. Instead, their entire relationship unfolded through thousands of texts and phone calls. Michelle seemed caring at first, always asking how Conrad felt, encouraging him to get better. But as time passed, their conversations took a darker turn. Conrad often talked about ending his life. Instead of urging him to seek help, Michelle began to encourage it. In July 2014, Conrad told Michelle he was close to giving up. Rather than stopping him, she helped plan the details: where to go, what to write in goodbye notes, and how to carry it out. On July 12, 2014, Conrad drove to a parking lot in his pickup truck. He used a generator to fill the cab with carbon monoxide. At one point, he stepped out of the truck, panicked, and called Michelle. What she said next became the most crucial moment in the entire case. She told him to get back in. Conrad followed her words. He died alone in the truck that night. His body was found the next morning. At first, his death seemed like a tragic suicide. But investigators found alarming messages on Michelle's phone. In them, she repeatedly pressured Conrad to go through with it. In one message after his death, she even admitted to a friend, "I could have stopped him. I was on the phone, and he got out of the truck. I told him to get back in." In 2015, Michelle Carter was charged with involuntary manslaughter. The case drew national attention. Could someone be found guilty for encouraging another person's death through words alone? Her defense argued she was a troubled teen herself, struggling with medication and mental health. The prosecution argued she manipulated a vulnerable boy for attention and sympathy. In June 2017, the judge found her guilty. She was sentenced to 15 months in jail and 5 years of probation. She served 11 months and was released in 2020. The case sparked intense debate across the world. Was she a villain or another teenager overwhelmed by mental illness? Should words alone be considered criminal when they result in tragedy? Today, Michelle Carter lives privately, away from the public eye. Conrad's family continues to advocate for mental health awareness in his honor. This story wasn't about knives or guns. It was about influence, responsibility, and how far accountability should go when life and death are shaped by a message on a screen. Number 8. Erica and Benjamin Sifrit. They looked like the perfect newlyweds, young, athletic, smiling in every photo. No one could have imagined that behind the wedding rings and beach vacations, Erica and Benjamin Sifrit were headed toward a nightmare of violence and betrayal. Erica Grace was born in 1978 inches, Pennsylvania. A former cheerleader and honor student, she was known for her confidence and charm. Benjamin B.J. Sifrit was a decorated Navy SEAL trainee, disciplined, tough, and trained in survival. They met in the late 1992, married in 1999, and looked like a couple built for success. But their relationship wasn't stable. Friends later said they were obsessed with control, thrill-seeking, and pushing boundaries. Erica became jealous and possessive. BJ left the Navy after repeated misconduct. They began collecting weapons, breaking into homes, and playing dangerous psychological games with each other. In May 2002, the couple vacationed in Ocean City, Maryland. There, they met another couple, Joshua Ford and Martha Jeannie Crutchley, tourists, enjoying a weekend by the beach. Erica invited them to their condo late at night for drinks. But once inside, things took a terrifying turn. Joshua was suddenly accused of stealing Erica's purse. What followed was never fully known, but police pieced together that the situation became violent. The couple was attacked. Joshua died first. Martha was trapped and met the same fate soon after. Instead of panic or regret, Erica and BJ calmly dismembered the bodies and disposed of them in trash bags across multiple dumpsters. Then they went shopping, relaxed by the pool, and even visited amusement parks. Their downfall came days later, not because of the killings, but because of a burglary. The Sifrits were arrested for breaking into a Hooters restaurant. During questioning, police noticed Erica's purse, which contained the victims' IDs. Detectives searched the Sifrits' condo. Inside, They found blood, bullet holes, and a handwritten list: kill people, get rid of bodies, don't talk. Soon after, body parts were discovered in Delaware. The investigation shifted from burglary to double homicide. The trials began in 2003. The couple blamed each other. Erica said BJ was violent and controlling. BJ claimed Erica pulled the trigger. Prosecutors said they acted together, serial thrill seekers who saw people as entertainment. Benjamin Sifrit was convicted of second-degree killing and kidnapping. He was sentenced to 38 years in prison. Erica, seen as the more manipulative partner, was convicted of first-degree killing. She received 2 life sentences plus 20 years. They divorced shortly after their convictions. Today, both remain in prison, separate, silent, and far from the glamorous life they once projected. This case remains unforgettable, not just because of the crime, but because of the couple behind it. A relationship built on love, control, and a craving for chaos that destroyed 4 lives, including their own. Number 9. Rachel Schoaf and Sheila Eddy. The Skylar Neese case. It started as an ordinary teenage friendship, sleepovers, selfies, and secrets. But by the end, one of them would be gone, and the other 2 would confess to something almost unimaginable. Skylar Neese grew up in West Virginia, born in 1996. She was bright, outgoing, a straight-A student, and best friends with Rachel Schoaf and Sheila Eddy. The girls were inseparable, posting photos online, sharing diaries, dreaming of the future. To everyone else, they were like sisters. But behind the smiles, tension was building. Skylar began to feel left out. Her 2 best friends were growing closer and pushing her away. They argued. Tweets and texts hinted at jealousy, betrayal, and resentment. But no one could have guessed where those feelings would lead. On July 5th, 2012, Skylar climbed out of her bedroom window around midnight to meet Sheila and Rachel for what she thought was a late-night drive, something they'd done before. Cameras captured Skylar getting into a car. It was the last time she was seen alive. The next morning, Skylar's parents found her bed empty and her window open. They called police. At first, it was treated as a runaway case. But when Skylar didn't contact anyone, not friends, not family, worry turned to fear. For months, Sheila and Rachel acted like grieving friends. Sheila even helped search for Skylar. She tweeted about missing her. She attended vigils. But behind the scenes, detectives noticed inconsistencies. Their stories didn't match. Their emotions seemed rehearsed. Then everything changed. In January 2013, Rachel had a breakdown. She confessed to police. She said they had planned the crime for months. They took Skylar to a remote wooded area near the Pennsylvania border. As the 3 walked into the woods, Sheila and Rachel counted to 3, then attacked. When asked why they did it, Rachel said chillingly, "We just didn't like her anymore." Rachel led police to the site where they had hidden Skylar. Her remains were found on March 13th, 2013. The community was in shock. These weren't hardened criminals. They were honor students with perfect smiles. The betrayal cut deeper than anyone imagined. Rachel Schoaf pled guilty to second-degree killing in May 2013. She was sentenced to 30 years in prison, with possible parole after 10. Sheila Eddy showed no remorse. In January 2014, she pled guilty to first-degree killing. She received life in prison, with parole eligibility after 15 years. Skylar's parents fought for change. In her memory, West Virginia passed Skylar's Law, requiring immediate public alerts for missing children believed to be in danger, whether they left voluntarily or not. Today, Rachel and Sheila remain in prison. Skylar's parents still visit the quiet memorial where their daughter took her last steps. The case stands as one of the darkest examples of how jealousy and teenage cruelty can turn deadly. Number 10. Aaron Caffey and Charlie Wilkinson. It began as a teenage romance in a small Texas town, then turned into one of the most shocking family crimes in modern America. Aaron Caffey was 16 years old, a church-going girl from Emory, Texas. Her parents, Terry and Penny Caffey, were strict but loving. They homeschooled their children, raised them around faith and music, and trusted Aaron deeply. But in 2007, Erin began dating one 8-year-old Charlie Wilkinson. At first, her parents allowed it, but as the relationship grew more intense and obsessive, they stepped in. They grounded her, took her phone, and told her she needed to end it. Erin refused. She became angrier, more defiant, and soon, the idea of running away turned into something far darker. Erin, Charlie, and two of his friends, Charles Wade and Bobby Johnson, came up with a plan. Instead of escaping, they would remove the people standing in the way, Erin's family. In the early hours of March 1st, 2008, they drove to the Caffey home. Erin waited in the car. Charlie and Wade entered the house with guns and knives. Terry and Penny were asleep in their bedroom. Shots and screams broke the silence. Penny was killed. Terry was shot multiple times but survived by pretending to be dead. But the horror didn't end there. Charlie and Wade then went upstairs where Erin's two younger brothers, Matthew, 13, and Tyler, 8, were sleeping. Both children were killed. Before leaving, they set the house on fire. Terry, bleeding and burned, managed to crawl out of the burning house and drag himself through the woods to a neighbor's home. He survived, but his wife and sons were gone. Police quickly traced the crime back to Erin and Charlie. Terry, from his hospital bed, could barely believe the truth. His only daughter had planned it. Erin was arrested that same day. During questioning, she showed almost no emotion. She claimed she never thought they would actually go through with it, but the text messages, planning, and witness statements said otherwise. In 2009, Charlie Wilkinson pled guilty to capital murder. He received life in prison without parole. Charles Wade, also involved, received life without parole. Bobby Johnson received 40 years for her role in the planning. Erin Caffey faced the death penalty, but prosecutors withdrew it due to her age. She pled guilty to 3 counts of capital murder and was sentenced to life in prison, with the possibility of parole after 40 years, meaning the earliest she could be released is 2048. Terry Caffey, the only survivor of the family, did something no one expected. He forgave Erin. He later said, "Hate is a poison. Forgiveness is the only way to survive." Today, Erin sits in a Texas prison. She is 32 years old, still decades away from possible freedom. Her case remains a haunting reminder of how love, when twisted by manipulation and rage, can lead to unbelievable destruction.